All right, let's talk about one of the most audacious, most flat-out brilliant betting schemes in history. This is the story of a man who figured out how to pull off a multi-million-dollar heist without ever breaking a single law. So think about that for a second. How do you actually pull off a multi-million-dollar robbery completely legally? It sounds impossible, right? But it happened. And this story isn't just about a horse race. It's really a masterclass in how to find and exploit the weaknesses in a system. It just completely blurs the line between genius and, well, deception. So let's go back in time. The scene is a small, pretty unassuming horse track in rural Ireland. It's a typical day, you know? You can smell the turf, hear the buzz of the crowd, the bookies are shouting out the odds. On the surface, everything seems totally normal. But behind the scenes, something else is going on, something incredible. The real action, the real story isn't happening on the track. No, it's unfolding in the shadows, where a couple of key players are putting a meticulously crafted plan into motion. A plan that was designed to bring the entire betting industry to its knees. So, who was the mastermind behind this whole thing? Well, his name was Barney Curley, a pretty mysterious and incredibly cunning gambler. I mean, this guy was so notorious that bookies would sometimes just shut down all betting the second they saw him walk onto a racetrack. And you could say this kind of thinking, well, it ran in the family. His dad was a greyhound trainer who had his own little schemes, like drugging his own dogs to fix races. But Barney, even at just 15 years old, outsmarted his own father. Instead of drugging the family dog, he secretly drugged a different dog to win his very first bet. He was a natural from the start. But by 1975, Curley's luck had kind of run out. After a bunch of failed businesses and some bad bets, he was deep in debt, £12,000, which was a huge amount of money back then. The bookies knew his reputation, so they wouldn't give him a fair shake. He was basically cornered, and he knew he needed one last, massive score to get himself out of the hole. And so he came up with a plan. A plan so meticulous, so perfectly designed, that it would go down in history as a legal robbery. See, he didn't look for ways to break the rules. He looked for ways to use the rules of the game against the system itself. His plan was basically a four-part masterpiece. First up, the horse. Find a really good one, but make it look terrible on paper. Second, the handicap. Use that poor record to get into a much easier race. Third, the venue. Find a racetrack with one single critical communication flaw. And fourth, the team. Gather a secret army of bettors all over the country. Okay, so here's how he played the system. By making his horse, Yellow Sam, look like a total dud, Curley made sure he'd get into a handicap race with no disadvantages, and, more importantly, with massive betting odds. The truth was, Yellow Sam was a strong horse, especially on his preferred firm ground, but if you just looked at the paperwork, he looked like a guaranteed loser. And this right here, this is the linchpin of the whole operation. This is where it gets really clever. Back in 1975, off-track betting shops would phone the racetrack to tell them about any big bets coming in. That would signal the on-site bookies to slash the odds. Curley specifically chose Bellewstown because it had only one public phone line, one way in, one way out, and that was the weakness he was going to exploit. So all the pieces are in place. Now it all comes down to execution on race day. The entire plan, its success or failure, all hinged on what happened in the last 25 minutes before the race even started. Curley sent a trusted friend, a guy named Benny, to that single phone booth. And his job was simple: occupy that line no matter what. So Benny picks up the phone, dials a number, and begins the performance of a lifetime, just wailing about his supposedly dying aunt. This big, dramatic show prevented anyone, especially the bookies, from getting a call through. Now, while Benny is holding that line hostage, Curley's secret army of 300 agents spread out in betting shops all over Ireland are just waiting. At the very last possible moment, right before betting closed, they all, at the exact same time, place their bets on Yellow Sam. So all of a sudden, these betting shops are flooded with money on this one horse. They try to phone the track to warn the bookies, to slash the odds. But what do they get? A busy signal. The race starts, the bets are locked in at 20-1, and the bookies of Bellewstown have absolutely no idea a financial tidal wave is about to crash down on them. So while Benny is sobbing into the phone about his miraculously recovering aunt, Curley is hidden in some bushes with binoculars, just watching his whole plan come together. And Yellow Sam, the horse that everyone thought was a total lost cause, just flies past the competition. He wins easily by 2.5 lengths. The race itself was over in just a few minutes. But for the bookmakers, the chaos was just getting started. And for Barney Curley, well, a legend was born. So the payout, it was absolutely staggering. From an initial investment of about £15,000, Curley and his network pulled in £300,000. Just to put that into perspective for you, in today's money, that is the equivalent of over $3.5 million. It was a life-changing score. Now, the bookies were furious. I mean, they knew they'd been had, but there wasn't a single thing they could do about it. Curley hadn't actually broken any rules, so they were legally required to pay up, which they did in 108 giant sacks of cash. He became an instant folk hero, and you better believe the betting industry immediately changed its rules to make sure this could never, ever happen again. And this event really cemented his legacy, which is complicated. When he passed away in 2021, the horse racing world didn't remember him as a cheat. They called him the Robin Hood of racing. He was this guy who beat the system. And what's really remarkable is that he often used his huge winnings to fund charitable causes. So ultimately, the story of Yellow Sam really leaves us with this question. Was Barney Curley a brilliant strategist who just saw a flaw nobody else did and had the guts to exploit it? Or was he simply a master manipulator? You know, maybe the truth is he was a little bit of both.